Welcome back. A group of swimmers brave the icy cold waters of the Atlantic in Cape Town, swimming 7.4 kilometers from Robben Island to Bloubergstrand. This is all part of fundraising efforts for Palestine and to increase awareness around the plight of the Palestinian people. I had her last week. She joins me again this week. It's Dr. Karen Daniels. Karen, good day. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, I'm glad you survived. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling much better today. Good day for us. I was pretty much exhausted yesterday. I didn't do anything, so I feel, but I rested. Some of our other more, what shall I say, more regular athletes yesterday still went out and Nadia Kareel, I think, went cycling. Somebody went running. Some of them actually went bobbing, but me, I stayed on my chair.
Yeah.
I stayed at home.
Karen, I just want to talk about the prep. I mean, last week you spoke to me and you said, look, this is going to be mental preparedness, but you're doing this to raise awareness of the genocide that is happening in Gaza. But I know that when you, and of course I know you all suited up and everything, but when you put your body into that water, the instincts of survival, of course, kick in. How has that transcended into you just going ahead and making that swim? Because the number 7.4 kilometers may seem very little, but swimming it, doing the strokes, I mean, that's an entirely different ball game altogether, isn't it?
Absolutely. So just to be clear though, because this was a relay, and when you say suited up, some of us weren't suited up.
Okay, okay,
So I'm a skin swimmer
okay,
actually, and I
all
can
right,
tell you it was pretty cold,
okay.
very cold.
Of course you would be,
But
yes, yes.
um, so because it was a relay, none of us were doing the full amount. And so I, for example, did 1.6. Many of us did 1.6, which is a mile. But in terms of what you're asking, like the difference between training and doing this, at a certain point when I was swimming, I thought, oh God, this is so cold. I want to turn around. And then all I thought about was so many people gave me money. I can't turn around.
Yeah, of
But
course.
but it's something when you know that you're doing this not for yourself, but for a greater cause. When we understand, we all of us, we trained. We've trained in cold water and we were of different abilities. And actually, in the end, we actually had 24 volunteers. So we had some people coming on the boats from the island, and then we had others going from the beach. I was one of those where, we swam out and met our swimmers at the boat. So we all came swimming back together. But the spirit, the camaraderie, and I think this is where training together really, really helps because you have to know that you can trust each other. Because when I was in the water, it really, I felt like I can't breathe. And my coach reminded me, you have done this before, you can do it, you are cold water
Sure.
acclimatized. I remembered the things, one of our coaches, Anwar, had said to me, slow your stroke. Another one said, just, calm your kicking, because these are the things that tire you when you're in the water, and especially when you're nervous, when you're anxious. But the thing about being in the water is that it takes all of the mental stuff away,
Yes.
because you can't think of anything other than what you are doing right now. Because that is all it is. It's you're there, you're in the extremely, as I said, cold. It's very deep. The water looked on Saturday. If you looked out, it looked like it was quite flat, but it was a lot
Yes.
choppier once we were inside. And then all of the boats were creating a bit of a swell and a bit of waves as well. And of course, to swim on your own is very easy. But when you're swimming with a lot of other people, and as I say, there were like at least 24 of us,
Sure.
and all of that kicking, it creates a lot of motion. So it's something, but it's also beautiful to be a part of, just to be a part of a team. And just, yeah, there's something, it does something to your heart,
Uh,
actually. I feel a bit,
Yeah, I mean, Karen, it is quite emotional, and we're going to touch on, of course, the raising awareness for Palestine. I mean, while you guys are swimming, I mean, I was speaking to my previous guest, Tahir Dawood, they from Take Back Our Mountains. There's a fire happening. There's massive blazes that are happening at Table Mountain. So it is quite not just an emotional day, but a chaotic day in Cape Town. So I mean, if there's one city that's going to have it all, it has to be Cape Town, eh?
yeah, I mean, the Take Back Our Mountains guys, can I just say they're fantastic.
Sure, definitely, yeah.
I've hiked with them already. And yeah, I mean, while we were in the water, Ali pointed out to me, he was like, look over there, look
Yeah,
over there, look at the fire. So we could see that fire
yeah,
from the
yeah.
water. So absolutely, it was a chaotic day, but the fire was very far from where we were, because Blouberg is on the west coast of
Yes, yes.
Cape Town, whereas the fire was very much in the deep south. But, we had people, the 11-year-old that was swimming with us, they're actually from that deep south, from that area. So I'm sure her parents would have been anxious about what's happening to their house. Yeah, so it's something.
Karen, we talk of survival every day since the genocide started on October the 7th, 2023. The people of Gaza have been on survival mode. They didn't know when their last day on this planet was going to be. And I think it's supposedly juxtaposed to the swimming that you are doing. And of course, that survival, even though, of course, it's a relay swim. How much of that was in your thought process when you said, I'm not just doing this so that there's the pomp and the glory of the swim, the media attention and everything, but there's a bigger picture. And that bigger picture is raising the funds, raising the awareness for those in Gaza. How much of that was within you to say, you and your team need to finish this because there's something bigger out there?
Absolutely everything. It's so we're really happy that we also brought attention to Freedom Day and reclaimed Freedom Day. But, when this started, I mean, when I first started thinking about this at the end of last year, I had received a message via Twitter in an inbox. So a friend of mine, Majdi Ashur, was from Gaza, and they had basically been in exile in Edinburgh. And I had been checking on Majdi, how's your family? And he was telling me his family's still stuck. And then I didn't hear from him, and I thought he was just busy. But then I get a message from his teenage daughter to say that he'd passed away. And that his family who was stuck there, that his mother had, I don't know, she had some chronic illness. I think it was hypertension, but she was being treated on the floor. And Majdi was a doctor that worked at Al Shifa Hospital. And other family had to escape, I think, to Romania with severe kidney failure. And Majdi's mother died on the floor. I mean, that heartbreak for me of, a medical doctor. It's, we revere medical doctors. You see them as a kind of status. They hold something in society. But that this person's mother had to die on the hospital floor, not because there was no care, but because in the sense of human spirit care, but because there was just no resources. That for me, it's one story, and that this, I'm sure she died of a broken heart, and that this poor little teenage girl had to relay the story on Twitter to me. I mean, still, it was a private message, but still, you can't not think about it. I don't know how how it doesn't break you to, and how people are not motivated to say, I cannot live in a world where people are blind to this, where people do not take notice of this, because in turning away, people in Gaza might be dying, but it's our humanity that dies when we say nothing. And I would, yeah, I can get cold, I can freeze, but I never want to lose my humanity. I never
Definitely.
want to lose my capacity to not see the human spirit in another person and not fight for that. Because in fighting for other people, I fight for myself also. Because, yeah, when we lose our humanity, we lose everything.
No, you couldn't have said it any more better. Current, Dr. Karen Daniels, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much. Go get some rest and
Thank
go and
you.
enjoy this moment. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Faraz, and
Yeah.
to everybody on Hilaal TV.
No, it's an absolute pleasure, Dr. Karen Daniels. She was one of the participants to swim that massive swim, of course, that had occurred 7.4 kilometers. Let me tell you something. I stopped right there at 500 kilometers, let alone getting to the kilometer. Well, that's all we have for you here on News in Focus from myself, Faraz Patel, and the rest of the team in Johannesburg. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.